so I'm gonna read out some quotes for you guys, and I want you just to, when you listen to these quotes, and I really apologize for them beforehand, when you listen to these quotes, I want you to imagine the certain types of people that are engaging in such behavior, and whether you would want these people in your lives, or whether you want these people protecting you, or whether you really want to be engaging with such people. Now, say if you were a Sikh in an office and somebody came and chopped off your beard, thought it was for banters, thought it was funny, I don't know. Say if you were a Muslim and you're working in an institution and someone put bacon into your shoes, or someone took your turban off and chucked it into your locker. Okay, there's those instances, there are those instances. Okay, so how about you overheard this conversation, right? Have you ever slapped your missus? It makes them love you more, you know. Seriously, I did that and she won't leave me alone. Now I know these daft C words are getting murdered by their boyfriends. Knock a bird out and she'll love you even more. It's human nature. They are biologically programmed to like that stuff. Lamo. Funny, right? I'm right though, right? I don't know. Are you right? Okay. Let's say you overheard other people saying some other stuff. Say you overheard somebody saying, I'd happily rape you. Or if I was single, I would happily hate F you. Okay? If I was single, I'd happily chloroform you. Cool. Getting a woman into bed is like spreading butter. It can be done with a little bit of effort and with a credit card, but it's quicker and easier just to use a knife. That's right. That's alright. DV victims love it. That's why they are repeat victims. Okay. Now, say you heard this. Say you heard people saying these stuff. Say you were in a room and know these people that were saying these things. How would you think? How would you feel? Would you want these people protecting you? Would you want these people in your lives? Personally, not. But unfortunately, these quotes all come from the Met Police in the UK. And recently there's been a Baroness Casey Report which has discussed about the Met and their behaviours and their recruitment and sexism and racism and homophobia in the Met, in the organisation. The Met has been accused of being institutionally racist for a while, since the Stephen Lawrence case, but you know, the Met says they don't believe in institutional racism. There's just a few bad apples. Just a few bad apples. Now, I wanted to make this video today because I like, you know, learning about sort of social commentary and politics, and it's right up my wheelhouse. I did psychology and criminology at university, so this is right up my wheelhouse. But I wanted to make a video in terms of about the police report, the report that has gone into the Met, and my views on it, and I wanted to just share that with you guys because I think you're gonna listen to some stuff during this and it's gonna make some harrow listening, and I apologize in advance for it, but it's just sad that we've sort of came to this point where a report like this is so damning. And can the Met change? I don't know. So we asked the question, are the Met racist, homophobic, and sexist? Let's find out. So I wanted to focus on one part of the report that discusses about racism. And so let's get into it. Let's get into the meat of it. So I'm going to start with how the Met treats its Black, Asian, and ethnic minority officers. And in the report, it says that Black officers are 81% more likely to be subject to misconduct than white officers. The report says that there is unequivocal evidence of racial bias alongside administrative failings. So, as a black officer, you're more likely to be pulled up on misconduct, which maybe isn't even your fault. I don't know. Or maybe someone's got a grudge against you. Maybe you have done something or maybe you've done something which just get taken out of context. I don't know. With statistics, obviously, we've got numbers. 81% is really high, right? 81% more likely. Come on guys, you're not even under 50. 81% is a first in the university degree, right? It's an A wherever you get it. It's high. And so there's actually comments from officers that have experienced racism within the police force. And so there was a quote from a black officer which said, you have to be invisible as a black woman. If you complain, you get into trouble, and your officers are more likely to try and move you and pass you on to another team. So if you try and say, I want to do this and I think this is right, or if you pull someone up because you think their conduct has been poor or how they've engaged with a certain person in community is wrong, if you want to bring up stuff like that, you might get in trouble for it. Imagine you're trying to better your service, and just because you are black, just because you're a black woman, you're more likely then to be labeled and moved on. You know, we all know the label of the angry black woman, the angry black man, you know, and if a black woman, you know, says her boundaries clearly, some people are like, oh, she's a bit of a killjoy, she's this, she's that. We've all heard it, we all know it happens. And so there's actually more that the report has to say about how minority officers are treated in the Met. The Met says it's only a small proportion of officers that experience discriminatory behavior, but the report paints a different picture. So 46% of black officers and 33% of Asian officers have reported experiencing racism at the workplace. And only 18% of black Met officers believe that the Met treats everybody fairly, compared to 63% of white officers. Now only 18%? 18%? Do you know, if you're doing an exam or if you're doing a test or anything else like that, 18% is a failure. I know, when I did biology A-level, I got a U, and that was 17%. I failed biology, and the Met are failing its own officers. Now, if you really think about it, you would want the Met, you'd want an organization to treat its people fairly. You know, if it's not treating its people fairly, how is it treating everyone else? Now the report gets into this and how Londoners are treated by the Met. And one thing I wanted to get into is stop and searches. In the black community, we all know about stop and searches. We all know somebody that has been stopped and searched. We know, to us, we believe that it's unfairly and disproportionately targeted towards young black men, and that it's ineffective and it doesn't work. But the Met says different. Okay, Met, what do you say? Now I'm gonna just read this straight off my notes, because it's quite a long one. So if I'm not looking at you guys, I apologize. But what the Met says is that we are targeting young people who are carrying knives, guns, and drugs. And we're in the drug markets and know what it is overall. A high proportion of young black men are being stopped than white men. We're seizing something like 300 knives a month off the streets. It's huge. People talk about disproportionality. You're stopping our black men. Young black men are dying on the streets of London and are being stabbed on the streets of London, and candidly are doing the stabbing on the streets of London. Damn, Met, I didn't know that. I didn't know as black people were the only ones doing the stabbing on the streets. Well, that is a high proportion of us. Oh, gosh, we just must be really stabby. We just must love being stabby. Oh well, that's what but the report says differently. And what the report says is the more stop and searches that are done, the more that have no further action. And the Misuse of Drugs Act is more used in stops and search in London, not weapons. And from 2019 to 2020, 12% of stop and searches led to further arrests. 12% is quite a low number, I can't lie guys. I mean, we talked about 18% over there, 12% is even lower than that. And so around 15% of arrests from stop and searches are due to weapons being seized. And guess where the Met ranks amongst police forces in England and in Wales for stop and searches? Guess. The Met would like to probably think they're first, but they're not. They're 31st out of 44. That's poor. And I think the Met probably is the largest police force in the UK, so maybe in Europe. So, guys, you gotta do better. 31 out of 44, you gotta do better. You gotta do better. And that is their average arrest rate that results in stop and searches. So they're 31st in their average arrest rate in stop and searches. And the impact this has on black people is even worse. The report says that those that have been stopped and searched experience more mental and physical health problems than those living in the same neighborhoods that haven't been stopped and searched. And it results in a mistrust of the police. We know this. We know there is a high mistrust in the police. You know, those that are stopped and searched are significantly more likely to have negative attitudes towards the police. And those levels of mistrust are really high. And then the report goes on to further say that in from 2020 to 2022, that their analysis found that black people black Londoners from the ages of 11 to 61 are 3 times more likely to be stopped and searched and to be handcuffed as well than those of white people from the same ages. 4 to 5 times more likely to have a baton used against them, and 4 times more likely to have a taser used on them than white people. Damn. And we've seen this, guys. We've seen this. I don't know if anybody saw the video last year of a man, and I'm gonna butcher his name here, and I'm sorry for the family if you guys are watching this, if you see this. But Olam Odejemi Oshowo. I was poor. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. R.I.P. anyway, but I really apologize for that. But he was tasered and then fell off the Chelsea Bridge in London, and it was. You can read the report. You can read the Guardian article about it. I'll put it into the show notes here so you can have a little read of that. But then also there are other instances like this. There was recently an officer that was arrested for the death of a Darlene Arkinson, a former Aston Villa player. You know, you think you're safe if you're a former footballer, but no one's safe. No one's safe from the Met. When Mr. Atkinson fell to the ground, he was tasered for 33 seconds. He was tasered for 33 seconds and then he fell to the ground. And then the officer kicked him at least twice, hard enough that he left an imprint of his bootlace on his forehead. What? An imprint on his forehead? No, that's crazy. That's crazy. Honestly, how can you hit someone hard enough that you leave an imprint on their forehead of your bootlace? I don't know if police bootlaces are bigger than everyone else's bootlaces, but that's something else. That is something else. And in the black community, we've been talking about this. The report actually discusses people's views and experiences of the Met. And it says that one quote says that we live in a hostile environment. I've lived in a hostile environment my whole life. I've been born into this hostile situation, and we carry the trauma of that. There's another quote that says, in the Afro community, since Windrush, we've had this relationship with the police. And there's others, there's one which talks about that we have a mistrust in the Metropolitan Police Force as in the black community. We just don't trust them. And even a police officer working in the school heard a young child say, when I grow up, I don't want to be a police officer. They're all racist. Now, that's a child of 9 years old that has this perception of the police. And fair enough, it's a valid perception. Sure, we all know they're not all racist. Of course they're not all racist. But there's enough out there that makes this 9-year-old believe that. And so, not only do we have the impact of stop and searches, but there are also instances where we've had black people, where we've had mixed people, Asian people dying in police custody. We've had children being strip searched at schools. Now I'm gonna further get into this, right? I'm gonna further get into this. So hold on, give me a second. So I'm back now. So yeah, we've had instances where children are being strip searched in schools. And recently we had Child Q. In December of 2020, there was a 15-year-old black girl that was stripped and searched by police in Hackney. And in a report that was made afterwards, in a local safeguarding report, they said that racism, whether deliberate or not, was likely an influencing factor into the strip search being conducted. Now also I've heard and seen other reports that have talked about the impact that this has had on this child. And imagine, and even worse in this case, she didn't have an adult present. There was no responsible adult present. And there have been other reports commissioned into the Met's use of strip searches on children. Can't believe I even have to talk about this, to be honest with you. So the Office of Children's Commissioner launched an investigation into the Met's use of strip searches on children during stop and searches. So between 2018 and 2020, around 650 strip searches were undertaken. And a quarter of those were of children between the age of 10 and 15. 10 and 15. Why are we doing this to children that are 10 and 15? Strip searching them. Are they criminals? Are we putting them into jail? What have they done wrong? Now, in Child's Q case, the teacher thought she smelled weed. Because we all love ganja, right? We're all stoners at the end of the day. All us black people are stoners. We must love drugs. But in these, out of 650 searches, the report found that 23% of instances an appropriate adult was not present. That's shady, bro. That is shady. 23%, no. No appropriate adult was present. Why are you exposing children to this when they don't have an adult present with them to help them through that traumatic experiences? If you were strip searched as a child at 10 years old, at 12 years old, at 15 years old, because someone made an assumption about you and the police came, you had to get taken out of your classroom and everyone's like, oh my gosh, what happened? Oh, what's going on? And then you go there and you get strip searched without an adult present. That's traumatic. And that will live on in the child for the rest of their lives. And I think that's also what we're not thinking about here, is the fact that these have long-lasting, traumatic, long-lasting effects on the child. They're gonna grow up, one, having a mistrust of the police, but then also, I don't even know how this affects their psychology, but I know it will. I know it will. So, also it states that in 53% of these instances, no further action was taken. Imagine you go through this whole ordeal, and they're like, you can go now, We didn't find anything. What? You've just traumatized me, you've just scared me, you've just humiliated me, and now I have to, go back into school and have all my friends ask me what happened, why it happened. I have to relive this traumatic event, and you just say I can go? Sure, if they don't find anything, yeah, sure, it's fine for you to go. But what? Honestly, think about it. Just think about how that's going to impact the child. And in more than half of the instances where stripping searches were conducted, the location wasn't recorded. What? You put in your reporting, you're not saying where these were recorded, where these strip searches were done? Is there a reason for that? To be honest with you, when you look at it, when you think about it, why wouldn't you put the location down? Was the location inappropriate? Was it, was it inappropriate? Why wouldn't you put the location down of where you've conducted these strips and searches? That to me just doesn't seem right, and I don't know what more to say onto that one. So with all these interactions with the police, how do you think people view the police? How can you work with a police force that you don't trust? You just can't. There's in the report, it talks about the notion of policing, and that policing should be done through consent, and by that you have to have trust in your police force. You have to trust them to give consent, to be like, okay, I know what you guys are doing, and maybe I don't agree with what you're doing, but I know you're doing it for my best interest. I know you're doing it for the best interest of society. But with all of this evidence, how are we supposed to trust the people in charge of protecting us? It's quite hard to do so. It is really hard to do so. And the report makes notes about how the trust in police has dwindled. It was from up to 63% a few years ago. Now it's down to 47%. And I know 47 doesn't sound like a big number. 47%, that's all right. This is kind of okay. But realistically, you want those numbers in the highs, especially when you've gone from 63 down to 47, and it doesn't really seem like it's getting much better. That number in the next 10 years, if the Met doesn't change, could be 30, could be 20. So, and there's differences in terms of which races have positive views and negative views of the police. Let me just give you a little stat from. Let me just give you a little stat from what the Met says, from what the report says. So it says 43% of Black Londoners and 41% of mixed ethnic Londoners agree that the Met is doing a good job. What about the other 60? What about the other 40, 50, 53? Okay? 33% of Black Londoners and 33% of mixed Londoners thought that the Met did a good job across London. Okay. See what I mean? You see what I mean? And there's so many more statistics in this. I'm gonna put up a little thing here of the graph, but that's not good enough. That is not good enough. If people aren't trusting in your police force, then how are you supposed to do your job effectively? It's hard. You can't. You absolutely can't. So here's another part of the statistics that have gone into do Londoners think that the Met does a good job or treats everybody fairly. It says that Londoners of all ethnic minorities are more likely to think that the Met treats white people fairly, which was 69%, whereas only 30% think the Met treats Black people fairly. Wow, 30%, 69 to 30%, that's just ridiculous. That's honestly ridiculous. And only 14% of Black Londoners think that the Met treats Black people fairly, with only 26% of white people that think that the Met treats people fairly. That's just That's just crazy. That's just crazy. And the one thing is with all these surveys, right? Surveys are great. Don't get me wrong. I think they're needed in society. We need to find out what people are thinking, right? But at the end of the day, surveys only account for the people that they survey. So there's so many other people that probably have negative or positive views about the police that aren't being included in this stat. So the number could be worse. It generally could be worse, because if you have a mistrust of the police, you might not be in the spaces where these surveys are getting taken place, or you might not even know that these surveys are taking place, and maybe you want to get involved, you know? I don't know how many black Londoners or how many Londoners got this report, or how many were included in these stats. I'm sure they got a large number of people, but at the end of the day, it can't be representative of everybody. So we do take these surveys with a bit of pinch of salt, because at the end of the day, the number could be worse. So those are some harrowing statistics and stats. And I know they don't sound too badly, but ideally you want a high percentage of trust in your police force, okay? And I don't think it's fair, I don't think it's right that this is what Londoners have to face, that what black Londoners, Asian Londoners, mixed ethnic Londoners have to face, that their own police force has been shown to be institutionally racist, has been shown to be sexist, homophobic, and it's alarming. It's alarming. The Met has had so many reports like this throughout the years, and we haven't seen change. If anything, we've seen it get worse. You know, Sarah Everard, that happened recently, that was the catalyst for this report. But there's been so many other things that have happened that you're just like, what can you do? What can you do? And the new commissioner of the Met has said that he wants to strive for change. But it's going to be hard. You have to change a culture. And that starts with recruitment, that starts with the people at the top, that, you know, maybe it starts with the people at the top, but then it has to trickle down to everything. Your recruitment, how you engage with officers, how you make sure that your ethnic minority officers are being protected in their own workplace. And they're protected in their own workplace, then you move on to the community and how you engage with the community and making sure that you have a representative workforce. And the report gets into that. It gets into how the Met has recruited and how it's representative, or how it's not representative of the community that it engages with. So it's really interesting. It's really interesting. And I was listening to a podcast about this, and I'm going to put that into the show notes too. And one of the explanations that the Met had given was about austerity. They were saying that austerity has impacted us, it's impacted our recruitment, it's impacted how we engage with people. I used to remember when you had a community officer that would be able to walk around your neighborhood and that would know the people they're engaging with, would know the community, know what's going on. And that sort of policing, I think, has gone because of austerity. Austerity definitely has an impact. But in the podcast, they were saying that within austerity, the police force had been given the most amount of money during that time. And I know there are other services, social services, that have been experiencing austerity, and we don't see this level of inadequacy, you know? And is it an excuse? I don't think so. A contributing factor, yes, I will say so. But at the end of the day, if you are the biggest police force that's been getting the most money during the period of austerity, you surely should be doing the best because you've had the most resources out of all the other social services, right? Obviously not, according to the Met. Well, the Met wouldn't say that. According to me, I say that. So I'm glad this report has been done, because I think it's good to shed light onto what has been happening for black Londoners, for mixed Londoners, for Asian Londoners, and how the Met can hopefully improve and change. Because at the end of the day, we don't want our police forces to be going through this. We want our police forces to be utmost institutions in society, because at the end of the day, they protect law and order. They protect people. And I think there maybe is a lot to say in terms of what the police have to do. I know and I've heard that a lot of what the police now respond to as well is mental health issues. And it's probably eating up a lot of their time when they could be focusing on other things. So we need to be, this is going to get into a little bit of rant about the Conservatives. But you know what the thing is, right? I'll be straight up. I'm diverging here. I'll be straight up. I'm not a huge fan of the Conservatives. Let's just say that. Am I a Labour supporter? Ish. Personally, I always think we need a balance. We need a harmony between the two, because I think the best ideas come from a collaboration, and that not one party does this and one party does that. Like recently, you know, the US had Trump, and now they have Biden, and we think, oh yeah, Biden's great. You know, he's doing the Green New Deal. You know, he's helping people out. You know, he's pushing things through, but my sister told me about this, and I found it quite alarming. You've got the Willow Project, which is, you can search that up, but I'm gonna also put something in the show notes so you can find it and have a read too. But basically, they found oil in Alaska or somewhere along those lines, and they want to start building mines. They want to start mining for that oil. Do you know how much that's gonna set us back, Biden? Do you know how much that's gonna set us back? So this is my point. No party has all the answers, and I think that in terms of for policing, you know, the Conservatives have been gutting social services for years, and therefore maybe the police aren't able to respond to as much as they want to, or social services can't respond to as much as they want to, and we need to be empowering those services. We need to be putting money into those services. We need to be figuring out creative ways to make money as the UK, so we can put money into those services, so we can build people back up. Because at the end of the day, people is what is going to make this society. And maybe for the police, maybe there is a way that they can have support in dealing with mental health issues that they have to go out and, you know, tackle. Maybe that's taking up too much of their time. I don't know. That's just my piece. That's what I was saying. But I get distracted now. But I wanted to focus on what the report has to say about sexism, because I also think that's quite important, especially for our black women out there, because, you know, this report talks about race, it talks about sexism, it talks about homophobia, and there's a term called intersectionality that was done by Kimberly Crenshaw, and it talks about how our identities can be, if we have multiple identities, we all have multiple identities, right? But our multiple identities can bring multiple discrimination on different fronts. Say if you are a gay black woman, you're gonna experience discrimination on being gay, being black, and being a woman. Or if you're a black man, well, maybe only men, maybe only on race. But if you're a black woman, you got race and you got sexism. So that's also why I wanted to focus on this part of the report, because I think it's really important. So, what does the report have to say on sexism? I'm doing this little dance. It's not a happy thing, yeah. So I now want to pivot and focus on what the report has to say about sexism within the Met. And the report surveyed women in the Met and, you know, its officers and its staff. And it said that around 30% of women have personally experienced sexism at the workplace, and about 12% have directly experienced sexual harassment. Now, also, as I said with surveys and stats before, the fact is that there probably would have been women in the survey that didn't want to say anything, that didn't want to have any comments, because they've experienced that much sexism in the workplace that they just don't want to speak up, they don't want to talk. And the culture that is within the Met that has been reported in this probably suggests that it's not safe for women to discuss this. You know, the report documents the experiences of women within the Met. And I'm going to read just some of this out for you. One woman says, "I've been shut down in conversations by men just for them to hear the other viewpoints of other men. I've been talked down to and spoken to in horrible ways that you just don't want to speak." It talks about the culture is just a regular occurrence, so women are just expected to put up with it, and that because it's so normalized, nothing gets done about it. There is this one also, which I want to read just directly from the report, which says, we were all required to introduce ourselves, to state what team we're in, and it was an icebreaker. And this one woman stated on a particular team, and this one male member asked them, who did you have to or suck to get this job? The entire group burst out in laughing, and nobody challenged him in the group or defended her, which made her feel degraded and undervalued at the institution and just viewed as a sex object. That's just crazy. And it goes on. There's so many more comments in there that women are sort of having to face within being in the Met. And it's a shame, because at the end of the day, for black women out there that are in the Met, you've got to face sexism, you've also got to face racism. So, you have the angry black woman trope, you know what I mean? And then you also just might be viewed as a sex object as well, that you don't deserve to be in the position that you're in. The only reason you got it is obviously because you had to do something with a man. You're not smart enough, you're not hardworking enough to earn this role. How dare you? How dare you? Honestly, wow. Just wow. So these are attitudes that the women within the Met are having to face, which is just awful. I think there'll be women that'll be watching this and listening to this, and probably that have experienced that similar type of environment within their own workplace. It isn't just the Met. We're focusing on the Met here, obviously, but I'm sure there are women out there that in any other workplace they've also experienced sexism, and that it's a culture of just acceptance within that work culture. So I'm not just bashing on the Met, but it's something that we need to look at and tackle within ourselves. And as men, if we hear other men degrading women, we need to be allies to those women. We need to be like, yo, that's not right. Why are you doing that? Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, the man ain't gonna listen to a woman telling him that. But hopefully he listens to a dude that's telling him that. And he may not listen to you, but at least you stood up for them, right? At least we're being allies towards them, because at the end of the day, that's the only way this changes. That's the only way sexism is eradicated. I don't know if it can ever be eradicated, which is kind of unfortunate, but we can definitely reduce it and make workplace cultures more just nice, less sexism, less racism, if we're out there challenging the people that have these views about women. So the Met says that they're dealing with the issue. They brought up a task force named Signa Project, which was set up to record and raise awareness of everyday experiences of women within the Met. And this was developed in the wake of Sarah Everard. And the project provided an analysis for the report, and it goes on to say that 33% were classified unwanted sexual behavior or criminal offences related to sexual behavior, 23% of insulting language, 10% of comments on appearance, 10% of comments on assumed level of ability. So these were stories. The Sigma Project collected stories from women within the Met, and this is what it came up with. And so we're seeing a system that isn't being able to cater, isn't being able to take care of the women that are within their workforce. So what does this mean? So you've heard what the Sigma report had to say there, or Signa report, and this shouldn't even be an issue. It's unfortunate that this is an issue, because at the end of the day, women should be able to go into a workplace or to go into any environment and feel comfortable. But that's just not the reality of most women. I remember, when you had all the Me Too movement stuff, and, when you'd hear some men being like, oh, it's not all men, when women are like, oh, we don't know who to trust. And at the end of the day, yes, it's not all men. Women know it's not all men. But when you don't know what men it is that could potentially pose you a threat or a risk, then you have to be fearful of everybody, you know? You live in an environment of fear. And I can't speak on that. That's just what I've heard women saying, you know? I would love to get women's perspective on their experiences in the work environment. All women that have been in the Met, that are in the police, I'd love to hear your experiences too, because I think that is important for us to be able to hear your stories, and hopefully that sheds some light. I mean, I'm hoping this report also sheds some light, but then hearing from you guys can also shed more light on your experiences. And so, you know, as men, for men, this is for you, y'all listening, first brothers. We have to be advocates for our sisters out there. You know, we all live on this earth together. We really shouldn't be putting each other down or making each other feel uncomfortable. You know, at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to go about and live their lives. So be nice, spread kindness. Don't be a dick, basically. But I think the whole point about sexism within the Met, we're seeing that change needs to happen, you know? And maybe it's not just on the Met for change to happen, because at the end of the day, this is a societal thing. Sexism is rife through all of society. And obviously this video is just focusing on the Met, but at the end of the day, we need to be challenging sexism in all forms and in all workplaces. So that is just what the report has to say on sexism. Obviously there's more, but I've just taken snippets out that I think are important. And so this is coming to the end of the video, guys. And I just want to share my final thoughts with you guys about this. So thank you for watching this video. I just wanted to share my final thoughts on what I thought about this report. And I think this report makes for some harrowing reading, really. And if you listen to any of the podcasts that are about it, then it makes for some harrow listening. It's not good to be hearing about one of the biggest police forces in Europe, you know, acting and behaving in these ways, you know. At the end of the day, these are the people that are supposed to protect us. These are the people that we go to for help. If something is in an immediate crisis, we go to for help. And even though this report talks about a culture and a system that isn't working for ethnic minorities, blacks and Asians and women's and people part of the LGBTQ+ community, I have to believe that they can change. But their behaviors over the years haven't suggested that change is coming. And in the report, it suggests that if the Met doesn't change, if they don't fix what's wrong within the system, then they're gonna have to be broken up. And we don't want that at the end of the day, because, you know, it doesn't help in terms of law and order and keeping society good. At the end of the day, we have the biggest police force broken up, and then what do you replace it with? Then you're building new structures, new trust, and trying to, it's just messy. It's just messy. So that's not what we want. That's not what we want. We want the Met to be able to reform, to be able to be working well for everybody in society, not just, you know, white people having beneficial treatment, maybe not even beneficial treatment, but, you know, we want black, Asian and mixed and ethnic minorities to feel welcome, to feel safe, because at the end of the day, it's better if everybody feels safe in society, not just a select few. And I have to believe that, you know, there are some good people. At the end of the day, right, there are people that join the police force that want to help people, that want to make change, you know. I have to believe that, you know, obviously there maybe is a few bad apples, but at the end of the day, the system and the culture lets these bad apples thrive and maybe creates more bad apples, you know. So at the end of the day, we want the Met to change, but will the Met change? And that's the real question. And hopefully we see change within the future, because like I said, it's better for one of the biggest police forces to be able to have trust in the community, because at the end of the day, with that trust, then you're building relationships, then you're building communities. And if we trust the police, then the police can do their job effectively. But if we don't, then it's harder for them to do their job effectively. But they got to come to us and be like, how can we serve you? How can we help you guys? How can we actually be part of your community rather than just being draconian and coming in on you guys? And you've got all the stop and searches, you've got strip searches of children. How do we stop giving your children trauma? You know? I mean, sounds simple, probably is a bit simpler, but I think there are ways in which hopefully the Met can change. And so I just want to thank you guys for listening to this video. I know it's a little different from the podcast, but this is stuff I really love to talk about, and I really think that it is important, especially as Black and Raw focuses on the issues within the Black community. The Met Police is an issue within the Black community. As you heard, there isn't much trust amongst Black people with the Met. So I really thank you guys for listening to this video, for watching this video. This is obviously also going to be on my podcast stream as well, so you can go and listen to that or watch the video on YouTube. But thank you very much. Please put your comments in the comment section if you have anything to say about the Met, or even if you think how can the Met change. You know, I'd love to hear your views, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And please like and subscribe, share this with a friend, guys, and we will talk soon.